Kidnapping the children of wealthy individuals as hostages for ransom might not be an unfamiliar concept to you, right? However, the kidnapper in today's case stands out from the rest due to his exceptional intelligence. Sadly, this brilliance was tragically misused. So who exactly is he, and how clever could he possibly be to leave the Hong Kong police renowned for solving challenging cases utterly baffled? The kidnapper was none other than Zhang Ziqiang, born on April 7, 1955 in Yulin, Guangxi, China. However, by 1959, at the age of 4, he and his family had moved to Hong Kong to start a new life. Cheng's father ran an herbal medicine shop right in front of a police station. Despite witnessing countless criminals being brought in and out daily, but this proximity to law enforcement couldn't prevent Cheng's future descent into crime. On the contrary, growing up in such an environment seemed to twist Cheng's mindset. The reason? The local police were notorious for extorting money from the populace. Even his father's shop wasn't spared, having to pay protection fees to ensure smooth business operations. Cheng first found himself inside a police station at the age of 12. By 1972, when he was just 16, Cheng already had 15 criminal records. Naturally, his father was deeply troubled by Cheng's path and constantly sought ways to guide him back to the right track. Ironically, his father's efforts only transformed Cheng from a petty street thief into a notorious robber who would later terrify the wealthy merely by the mention of his name. Cheng's father took him to work at a tailoring shop, hoping the job would instill discipline in him. Though the pay wasn't much, Cheng respected the profession and worked meticulously. It seemed like he was on track to becoming a responsible citizen, but reality proved otherwise. Cheng recognized that Hong Kong was a magnet for foreign tourists. With this in mind, he devised a plan to exploit them financially. Realizing his lack of education was a hindrance, he took the effort to learn English to communicate effectively with wealthy foreigners. Through his interactions, Cheng managed to earn his first significant sum, 50,000 yuan. During his time at the tailoring shop, Cheng encountered two individuals who profoundly influenced his life. The first person is Wang Fengke, a male colleague who had been navigating the societal underworld long before Cheng. With his extensive network, Wang played a pivotal role in steering Cheng towards a criminal career. The second person is La Yanfeng, a female colleague who later became Cheng's wife. Lo bore him 2 children and was widely regarded as a good wife and daughter-in-law. Beyond her domestic role, she significantly supported Cheng's endeavors. In fact, La played a major role in helping her husband escape prison later in life. At 29, Cheng used the 50,000 Taiwan dollars he had saved from his tailoring job to invest in real estate. He sold his investment for over 100,000 Taiwan dollars, a sum several times greater than what he had previously earned through honest work. Perhaps the rapid accumulation of wealth clouded Cheng's judgment, pushing him deeper into the world of professional crime. By 1990, Cheng had executed numerous robberies, including stealing cash, transport vehicles, and Rolex watches. In 1991, he was apprehended by Hong Kong police, despite the severity of his crimes, but he was acquitted in June 1995 due to conflicting evidence. One might think that after being released from prison, he would have learned his lesson and turned over a new leaf. However, in reality, he continued orchestrating even more sophisticated robberies, culminating in a case that left the Hong Kong police and public utterly astounded and bewildered. During his time in prison from 1991 to 1995, he expanded his network of influence. It was there that he met Yip Kai-foon, another infamous thief in Hong Kong. After Zhang Ziqiang was released and Yip Kai-foon successfully escaped from prison, the two conspired together in Cambodia, recruiting more members to plan the most ambitious crime in Hong Kong's history, the largest ransom kidnapping ever. Their target this time was Li Zhaoji, the eldest son of Li Ka-shing, Hong Kong's wealthiest tycoon. They planned to strike on May 23, 1996, 10 days before the event. On May 13, 1996, Yip Kai-foon, Zhang Ziqiang, and their accomplices armed themselves and returned to Hong Kong on a fishing boat. As soon as they disembarked in Sai, they encountered 3 patrolling police officers. Yip Kai-foon was immediately arrested, but Zhang Ziqiang and the others managed to escape successfully. Cheng later paid a settlement fee to Yip Kai-foon's brother, while Yip himself kept his word and did not disclose their plans to the police. Seeing that the police had no leads, Cheng decided to act immediately. At the time, the police had no idea that Zhang Ziqiang and Yip Kai-fun were part of the same gang, partly because they had failed to recognize Chung that night. Around 6 p.m. on May 23, 1996, Li Zhaoji was finishing his workday at the Bank of China Tower as usual. He then got into his car, where his driver began taking him home to his mansion on Deepwater Bay Road. As Li Zhaoji was dozing off in the car, the vehicle suddenly came to an abrupt stop. Startled awake, he saw 3 cars surrounding his own. His fear grew when he noticed an AK-47 in the hands of the assailants. They forced Li Zhaoji out of his car, blindfolded him, and transferred him to another vehicle, which took him to an isolated location. The next day, Zhang Ziqiang, armed with a Soviet TT-33 pistol and exuding confidence, marched into the mansion of tycoon Ka-shing in the Deepwater Bay area. Chung was warmly received and escorted straight to Ka-shing's office. There he demanded a ransom of 1 billion Hong Kong dollars. Surprisingly, Ka-shing did not hesitate or negotiate, but immediately agreed to the demand. Chung found this peculiar and asked Li why he was so compliant. The billionaire responded, "This is my fault. I have such a prominent reputation in Hong Kong, yet I took no precautions. For instance, I often go to the beach early in the morning and drive myself to the new territories at 5 a.m. Several cars could easily block mine on the way, and I wouldn't have any means to defend myself. You've made me realize I need to be more careful." Initially, Li offered a down payment of 40 million Hong Kong dollars as he didn't have enough cash on hand to pay the full amount. However, Chung, being somewhat superstitious, felt that the number 4 was unlucky as it sounded like death in Cantonese. He requested Li to provide 38 million Hong Kong dollars instead. Chung also demanded an additional fee for allowing the delay in payment, bringing the total ransom to 1.038 billion Hong Kong dollars. After receiving the full ransom, Chung immediately released Li Zhaoji. Ka-shing reportedly told Chung that the money he had extorted would last him a lifetime and urged him to change his ways and live a better life. However, Chung ignored this advice, spending the money extravagantly and continuing his life of crime. As the funds dwindled, Chung even had the audacity to call Ka-shing to ask for investment advice. However, Ka-shing simply said, "I'm afraid I don't have the answer. I could teach you how to be a good man, but it seems you're not interested. So there's only one path for you. Run as far as you can, or your story won't end well." Yet again, Zhang Ziqiang ignored the billionaire's advice. Instead, he repeated his old ways, plotting new kidnappings to extort money from the wealthy. According to Chung's acquaintances in the years that followed, he and his gang even identified their next target: Stanley Ho, the casino tycoon and head of Asia's largest gambling empire at the time. But this time his luck ran out. As Chung stepped outside his comfort zone to observe Stanley Ho's daily routines, he was stopped by the police, who requested his identification. Knowing the police were not asking out of mere coincidence, Chung grew uneasy and abandoned the plan. However, he did not give up on kidnapping entirely. Instead, he shifted his target to another wealthy figure: Hong Kong real estate tycoon Ka Bing-siang. Chung took action on September 29, 1997, merely a year after he had kidnapped the billionaire's son. That day, Ka Bing-siang was driving home alone. As he approached the gate of his mansion on Deepwater Bay Road, Chung and his accomplices surrounded him. Using force, they took Ka Bing-siang to a remote village in the new territories. But unlike before, this operation did not go as smoothly. Ka Bing-siang refused to cooperate and adamantly declined to call his family to discuss the ransom. Chung naturally did not leave him in peace. It was rumored that Ka Bing-siang was stripped of his clothes and locked inside a wooden box so small he had to curl up to fit. He was forced to eat, sleep, and relieve himself inside the box. Eventually unable to endure the torment, Ka Bing-siang made the ransom call to his family. This time, Chung did not personally go to the victim's home to collect the ransom. Instead, Ka Bing-siang's mother sent a car to pick up Chung at a prearranged location. On October 3rd of that year, she successfully secured her son's release. Although Ka Bing-siang was safe, he suffered severe psychological trauma from the ordeal, requiring over a year of therapy to recover. As for Chung, he had no intention of abandoning his career. On the contrary, he aimed even higher. He immediately began planning a larger operation, stockpiling 1,000 kilograms of industrial explosives, 2,000 detonators, over 700 meters of fuse wire, a significant quantity of microflush AK-47 ammunition, tear gas canisters, and grenades. On January 8, 1998, his shipment arrived in Hong Kong. Although only 800 kilograms of explosives remained, it was still highly dangerous. Initially, Zhiqiang stored the materials in a stone house. He then traveled to Guangzhou to meet a man named Hu Jishu before driving back to a hotel in Shenzhen. Between January 16th and 22nd, the two conspired together. However, every time Zhiqiang returned to mainland China, he was under close surveillance by law enforcement, who were aware of his smuggling of explosives from China into Hong Kong. From January 16th to 22nd, the police continuously monitored the hotel from outside. On the morning of January 23rd, Zhiqiang suddenly felt uneasy. He left the hotel and drove straight from Shenzhen to Zhuhai. The police, of course, continued to tail him. In the afternoon, Zhiqiang moved from an apartment at Seaview Garden in Zhuhai to the Golf Villa in the same city. The police maintained their watch, but the villa's area was restricted, barring entry to civilians and foreign vehicles. The officers had to conceal their identities, as revealing themselves was not an option. This left them no choice but to sneak into the villa secretly. However, the complex was vast, and Zhiqiang sensed something was amiss, allowing him to slip away unnoticed. By the afternoon of January 24th, the police reviewed surveillance footage and finally located Zhiqiang's car parked at a Zhuhai shopping center. They waited there all day, but never saw him return to the vehicle. Eventually, they decided to cordon off the entire shopping center to search for him, but it seemed Zhiqiang had fled, abandoning the car earlier that morning. Zhang Ziqiang and Hu Jishu spent the night at the Gongbei Hotel until 9 a.m. on January 25th. At that time, Hu Jishu's older brother arrived at the hotel, exchanged a few words, and swapped clothes with him. Zhiqiang then got into a taxi and headed straight to Jiangmen. 3 hours later, at 12:10 p.m., as Zhiqiang was about to enter Jiangmen, a traffic police officer stopped his vehicle. At first, Zhiqiang suspected nothing, but suddenly a large number of plainclothes officers emerged, surrounded him, and pointed their guns at him, ordering him to remain still. This time, the police acted decisively, knowing that if Zhiqiang entered Jiangmen, it would be challenging to track him down due to the area's remote and secluded nature. In total, 36 members of Zhiqiang's criminal gang were apprehended. There were various speculations about why he had acquired such a large quantity of explosives. Some believe he planned to blow up a prison and use a helicopter to rescue his associate Yip Kai-fun, who was serving a sentence. Whatever Zhiqiang's intentions were, it was fortunate that he was captured. However, his wife, Lai Yinfang, seemed unfazed by his arrest, as he was detained in mainland China rather than Hong Kong. She began searching for a lawyer for her husband, hoping to have the case transferred to Hong Kong for trial. Her reasoning was twofold. First, Hong Kong did not have the death penalty, and at worst, Zhiqiang would face a life sentence. Second, the victims had not reported the incidents to the police, making it difficult to prosecute him. If she succeeded in transferring the case to Hong Kong, there was even a possibility that Zhiqiang could be acquitted. Her reasoning was sound, but unfortunately it did not pan out. The court ultimately decided to try Zhiqiang in mainland China, as most of his crimes had taken place there. In November 1998, Zhiqiang was sentenced to death for cross-border explosives trafficking, robbery, and kidnapping. On December 5th of the same year, Zhiqiang was executed by firing squad, bringing an end to the infamous career of the notorious bandit. It's clear that Zhang Ziqiang was highly intelligent, not the stereotypical brainless criminal. However, it's unfortunate that he channeled his intelligence into the wrong pursuits. If he had applied his brilliance to building a legitimate career and contributing to society, his story might have had a very different ending. Instead, his misplaced talents led him to pay the ultimate price: his life. This case also highlights the importance of raising and educating children properly and paying attention to their character development. A child's personality is largely shaped by the environment in which they grow up. The story of Hong Kong's largest ransom kidnapping is now complete. What are your thoughts on Zhang Ziqiang? In the dim light of dawn on April 5th, 2004, while most of the people in Stavanger were still deep in sleep, a dark nightmare suddenly descended. A group of masked raiders, donned in bulletproof vests and wielding modern weapons like fully armed phantoms, stormed the cash-counting center with the precision and sophistication of an elite military unit. In a flash of violence and chaos, millions of kroner were swept away in a matter of minutes, marking the largest cash heist in Norwegian history. In that fleeting moment, the lives of many were forever changed, and the city of Stavanger plunged into a state of shock and horror, stunned by the audacity and ruthlessness of the criminals. Behind this terrifying heist was none other than David Tze-keung, the mastermind whose criminal history stretched back to the 1980s. Linked to the notorious Twitter gang, Tze-keung was known for his cunning strategies, making him a persistent nightmare for the police. At his side was Kjell-Ulrik Schumann, known as the Shadow for his ability to disappear without leaving any trace whenever he operated. These men were no strangers to the criminal world, with a rap sheet that seemed endless. Before the historic Nokas robbery, there had already been ominous signs of a looming crime spree. The failed robbery at the Norwegian post office in Oslo on October 27, 2003 was the roar before the storm. Though meticulously planned, but the robbers only managed to seize a fraction of the expected haul due to the delayed arrival of the cash. However, this failed heist was merely the first step in a larger, bolder scheme brewing in the shadows. As winter 2004 drew near, Tze-keung and his crew meticulously planned every move. They scouted weapon purchase locations and even conducted practice drives to ensure there were no flaws in their escape route. Tze-keung rented houses in Sands and Stavanger, positioning himself strategically for the operation. Meanwhile, Schumann established a base in Hungvag, creating a solid criminal network, where no detail was overlooked in their preparations. Then the moment of horror arrived. At exactly 8 a.m., the stage was set for the grand performance. A white truck engulfed in flames like a living nightmare distracted the police outside the station. Seizing the moment, the robbers broke into the cash-counting center, smashing through the fortified doors with sledgehammers and specialized tools. Their intent was clear: to steal a massive fortune and vanish without a trace. But the robbers' seemingly flawless plan quickly hit unexpected obstacles. The bulletproof glass at the counting center, which they assumed would be easy to break, proved to be much tougher than anticipated. Each heavy swing of the sledgehammer only made the glass shudder, but it refused to crack. Time ticked away, every second feeling like a drumbeat of tension as the robbers realized they were now 8 minutes behind their original schedule. The pressure mounted as they knew time was no longer on their side. While they struggled with the unforeseen challenges, flashing lights and the blare of police sirens shattered the silence of the church square. Officers Eric Holland and Stefan Nissan, in their Volvo patrol car, screeched to a halt. They quickly took positions hiding behind cover, ready for the inevitable showdown. Yet in the lurking shadows of chaos, everything unfolded too quickly for anyone to fully comprehend what was happening. Inside the vault, the masked robbers stuffed bags with millions of kroner, and the number kept climbing rapidly, reaching 57.4 million in just a few short minutes. Outside, Kjell-Ulrik Schumann stepped out of the Nokas building unaware that he was about to walk straight into a storm of violence. Only 2 minutes later, the air was thick with tension as undercover officer Fred Schirling, dressed in civilian clothes, confronted Schumann. Schumann coldly pointed his AG-3 rifle at Fred and asked the question that felt like a death sentence. "Who are you?" Fred Schirling stood still, fully aware of the gravity of the situation. With his hands raised high, he hoped for a compromise, but it seemed like fate had already decided. Gunfire erupted like thunder, shattering the peaceful morning air. The robbers and the police clashed in a deadly battle. Bullets whizzed through the air, and flashes of gunfire lit up the scene, turning the bold robbery into a bloody confrontation between the gang and law enforcement. In the midst of the violent hail of bullets, tragedy struck when Police Chief Arne Sig Klungland was shot. A man who had dedicated his life to upholding the law fell instantly, a victim of the senseless violence unleashed by the robbers. His death shocked the entire city, serving as a grim reminder of the high price paid in the defense of justice against ruthless forces. Klungland's sacrifice did not dampen the resolve of the police. On the contrary, it ignited a fierce determination to hunt down the robbers at all costs. An unprecedented manhunt in Norwegian history was launched immediately, with every available resource deployed in relentless pursuit. Yet like ghosts in the night, the robbers vanished before the police could capture them. Along with them disappeared a staggering sum of nearly $10 million, leaving an indelible scar on the city of Stavanger. The once peaceful streets of Stavanger quickly turned into a battleground as police intensified their search for the robbers. No corner was left unchecked, and the entire city was gripped by tension and suspense. The authorities spared no effort in restoring order after the most audacious robbery in Norway's history. Law enforcement launched an unwavering manhunt, using every modern tool available to trace the culprits. Dramatic raids followed one after another, with every suspected house and apartment meticulously searched as though a giant net was tightening around the criminals. Feeling the mounting pressure from the police, the robbers found themselves cornered with no way out. One by one, suspects were arrested in a series of meticulously coordinated operations. With unwavering determination, the police steadily closed in on their target, ensuring that every criminal would be brought to justice. The investigation gradually painted a full picture of the robbery as crucial evidence began to emerge, and each clue became a terrifying piece of the puzzle. Forensic analysis of clothing left at the scene, discarded weapons during the robbers' escape, and surveillance footage from security cameras gradually revealed the identities of those behind the heist. Crucially, DNA traces provided undeniable evidence that quickly sealed the case. One by one, the robbers found themselves with nowhere left to hide as justice closed in. The wheels of justice continued to turn as the suspects were brought to trial, with the entire nation following every dramatic development. The prosecution built a compelling case armed with a mountain of strong evidence and detailed testimonies from witnesses. Surveillance footage captured every moment from the start to the brutal end of the robbery, painting a clear picture of the defendant's guilt. No detail was overlooked, leaving no room for doubt. In the end, justice prevailed, and the robbers faced appropriate sentences, receiving the harshest punishments. In total, 13 individuals were charged, with mastermind David Tze-keung receiving the longest sentence, 21 years in prison. Tze-keung, considered the leader of the gang, admitted his role in the robbery, but denied involvement in the death of Officer Klungland. However, his dark past did not stop there, as Tze-keung faced additional charges related to a bank robbery in Bryn and the Oslo postal heist in 2003. Meanwhile, Johnny Thindrup, another key figure, admitted he was caught in the crossfire during the shootout. His confession not only added more drama to the case, but also revealed previously unknown details. However, the biggest shock came 2 years later when Kjell Aure Schumann, a member of the gang, unexpectedly confessed that he was the one who pulled the trigger, killing Officer Klungland. DNA evidence found on a scarf and a partially burned mattress from the getaway vehicle which they had attempted to destroy linked Schumann to the crime scene. Ironically, the robbers had inadvertently given themselves away by leaving crucial evidence right at the doorstep of the police station. The aftermath of the Nokas robbery was not just about financial losses, it shook Norway's entire legal system. March 2006 was a dark day for the criminals, as the court sentenced 13 individuals to a combined 181 years in prison. The story didn't end there. With the heaviest sentence, David Tze-keung still carried with him unanswered mysteries. Was someone else behind this horrifying heist? 1 year later, in January 2007, a new legal storm erupted when the appeals court upheld the verdicts for 12 of the robbers but Thomas Thindrup. The 13th member faced a dramatic turning point. Although he was acquitted by the jury, but Norway's appeal laws allowed the judges to overturn the decision, sending Thindrup back to trial. This immediately ignited a fierce wave of controversy, shaking public trust in the justice system. Eventually, Thindrup faced a new trial and was sentenced to 14 years in prison in September 2007, a dramatic and unpredictable conclusion. However, the story didn't stop there. In June 2007, Norway's Supreme Court added another 27 years to the total sentences for the defendants. Amid the still ongoing debate, Ahmed K., another criminal involved in the heist, continued to adamantly proclaim his innocence. Although the police believed he helped the robbers escape, Ahmed claimed he was only in Stavanger for a drug deal. despite accepting the sentence, but he consistently expressed regret and appealed, arguing that he was convicted of a crime he didn't commit. The legal battle was not just about justice for the criminals, it also left a tremendous financial burden on Norway. The investigation and prosecution costs reached 160 million kroner, but the stolen money was never fully recovered. Only 7 million kroner of the stolen amount was retrieved, representing a significant loss for the country. The statistics from the case were staggering. In a single event, Norwegian police fired more than 50 shots, nearly two-thirds of the total rounds they had fired in the previous several decades. The 2004 Nokas robbery wasn't just an ordinary crime, it served as a stark warning about the severity of violence, leaving Norway from Stavanger to other cities gripped with anxiety and fear. The consequences of the robbery were not just about lost money or tarnished reputations. The families of the victims bore the ultimate pain, their lives forever altered by the senseless cruelty of such violence. The tragic death of Police Chief Arne Sigve left not only an immense sadness, but also a scar that can never be erased from the hearts of the community. The peaceful streets of Stavanger, once a symbol of tranquility, were now shadowed by fear and loss. This event not only exposed weaknesses in law enforcement's security system, but also spurred significant changes. Protective measures were reinforced, and a series of reforms were implemented to ensure that no similar incident could happen in the future. The Nokas robbery also highlighted the alarming rise of organized crime, underscoring once again that the battle against the criminal underworld remains long and challenging. In the years that followed, the Stavanger community held numerous memorial ceremonies to honor those who had fallen. These solemn events were a tribute to their sacrifice, reminding everyone that although time passes, the memory of the three victims, including Officer Klungland, will never be forgotten. The wounds from the Nokas robbery have gradually healed. Norway has risen stronger and more united. The lessons from this heist became the driving force behind stricter security measures, better preparing the nation for any future threats. The Nokas robbery, marked by violence and loss, has become a haunting memory in Norway, reminding the entire country of the fragility of peace and order. The lasting scars left by the robbery will forever serve as a warning about the terrible price of greed and uncontrolled violence. How do you feel about this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below for everyone to see. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support me. Thanks for watching.